Hello, everyone. I'm Kerry George with CIBN TV, which you can find on YouTube. And today I'm going to be talking about thousandaires, millionaires, and billionaires. And what's the difference? How do these people think? And how is it different between you and I and how we think? So you're going to want to stay tuned to hear the whole story. I got some fabulous guests with me that are very experienced in working with millionaires and billionaires. So stay tuned. Let's see what this is all about. Ladies, I'm so excited to have my special guests here with me today. I have Katherine Kim Mullin, and I have Haley Gray, the founder of WEN, Women's Entrepreneur Network, 76,000 members on Facebook. And of course, Katherine, you guys might not know who Katherine is, but she should be famous because she works with the elite, the top of the top, the guys that buy islands. You guys are going to love meeting Katherine and talking with Katherine. So ladies, we're going to talk about thousandaires and millionaires and billionaires today. And what is the difference in how they think, and what is the difference in, what's going on in their head, how they get there, and where we get started out. So let's just, I'm going to introduce each of you now, and let's just get your quick feedback, and then we're going to really dive into this in a deep way. Katherine, let's bring you up first.
Hi, thank you for inviting me here. And you know what? You mentioned something interesting. Here's how I'll start. You said I have that elite clients. Well, even when they weren't, and they were only small, as far as maybe they had sales of $1 million or $50,000, they were always elite clients. So I've always thought in my head about, people are people, and whether they have $1 or they have $1 billion, who are they? And I hope we get to talk more about that today.
That is going to be very exciting, and definitely I agree. And people are people. They're not numbers. We all have the same human needs, but somehow some rise to the top. And we're going to discuss a little bit more about how that works and how does that happen. But you know what? That guy that made $50,000 when you met him probably already was thinking like he was a billionaire when he had $50,000. That's really cool. All right, Haley, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody and talk about why this subject excites you?
Sure. Hey, everybody. I'm Haley Gray. I'm the founder of Women's Entrepreneur Network. And, one of the things that I find particularly interesting is mindset around money, mindset around making money, mindset about becoming a millionaire or a billionaire. And, if you are a small business owner, the economy grows from the bottom up. If we look at where growth in the economy, net adding of jobs comes from, it comes from small businesses. So you can actually impact your local community. 70% of your money tends to stay in the local community. It makes a huge difference when we talk about supporting small businesses. And, many of your millionaires and billionaires have come out of that entrepreneurial and small business mindset. It's just interesting to see how, it doesn't really take necessarily a ton of money to make money. It takes a certain set of skills and a certain set of mindset and the willingness to actually do the work.
I love that. I think that's absolutely true. And sometimes people, fail their way forward.
Mm-hmm.
They start out maybe having the wrong kind of attitude that wouldn't work very well for growing a large business. But along the way, things change. I'm thinking about a story I read one time about a guy named Peter Wagner he's out of Australia, New Zealand type part of the world. And he had this, in his 40s, he was still not hitting it, and he had struggles, and he was not, moving his business forward. He kept failing at the things that he was doing. And I believe he even had some dependency issues, like things were not going well for this guy. And then he hit a little bit of a home run with one business and he sold it. And then he bought another business. And the next thing you know, this other business started to take off and he started to buy additional businesses. When I heard him live and in person, this was probably about 2008 or something like that. He was visiting my city. At that point, he had ownership in some of the biggest gold bullion banks in the world. And was in on like these fancy colored diamonds, and he had businesses all over the world and divisions that ran them. And he had gone from, he was now in his 70s, so it took about 30 years, but it was amazing the distance that he had traveled and how he didn't let his attitude change. I mean, his attitude changed, but he didn't let it take him down. He didn't let it.
Who you are doesn't fundamentally change.
It's really interesting. So, ladies, what has your experience been when we're dealing with those, I would say, are thousandaires? Okay, I know, Haley, you work with people on their websites. And when you meet people for the first time and they're talking about getting a website done, is there some commonalities that you find in the way that they think when they are struggling and things are not moving forward?
What's interesting doing marketing strategy, it's not just websites, is that, a lot of times somebody who's really going to struggle in business is going to struggle. They're going to blame the website. They're going to blame everything instead of looking at themselves and seeing what they are doing that's not generating clients. The reality is a website is only going to convert if there's traffic to the website. Most people, most small businesses, that website is there for credibility. It's not really there as a sales funnel in the sense of we're not necessarily driving ads to it. If we're driving ads to something, it's to a sales funnel and to a sales page, which is a different thing than a website. So understanding, what is going to generate sales, what's going to generate money, what's not going to generate money, being willing to put yourself out there, being willing to make offers. Those things are what make a difference. It's the person who wants to hide and doesn't want to interact with others and refuses to actively, realize that at the end of the day, your ability to market your business is going to be highly dependent on the quality of your network, the quality of your connections, the quality of your platform, and the extent of your reputation. And if you don't have connections and you don't have a network, then, and a reputation, it's really hard to get sales off of that website because nobody knows who you are and nobody's going to be looking at that website. So it's actually really interesting. A lot of times the problems don't even boil down to the website. Now, are there times when people should redo their website? Absolutely. Are there times where a website is not converting? Absolutely. Should it be redone? Absolutely. It's just interesting to me that you realize pretty quickly in marketing strategy that it's not the website that's the problem. A lot of times it's the business owner that is where the weakness really is.
You're really making me think of something here. It just popped into my head right now, and I think this would be true. You guys can correct me if you think I'm wrong. When a person's a thousandaire, they're doing all their sales themselves. When they are a millionaire, they have learned to actually take what they've learned in sales, and they now have a sales team. When they are a billionaire, they now have entire businesses that run without them. Many of them, usually. Investments as well.
I think it depends. I mean, I know lots of business owners themselves who, like, say, are general contractors who own, multiple 8-figure businesses. And I know a lot of them. And the owner may be the one that is primarily doing the sales, but they have a strong network of people who are bringing in referrals. So at the end of the day, you may be one person who is actually actively closing the sales, but it is based on that strength of reputation that you're getting those referrals and you're getting people coming in, people, referring somebody who needs that major renovation or whatever the business is. So a lot of times, you know, that reputation and that network are starting to grow the business because people know who you are and they're willing to refer to you. But at the end of the day, you do a lot of times have one or maybe a secondary person who is closing sales. So it just depends on the business.
It's a journey, though. There's this journey is happening. What are your thoughts on this, Katherine?
Well, I believe the reason and I don't say the word well, thousandaires would stay thousandaires is because they never get out of that mindset. And I hate the word mindset, but they're not mindful is a better word for me. So they're not mindful to surround themselves well. So whether you're multi-millionaire companies that I know, like very successful companies where they flaw and sometimes stumble, is they forget the basics. So no matter who you are, 1,000 billionaire, whatever, you have to have your finger on the pulse to understand your business so that you're making sure it's run effectively. But when you're a thousandaire is when you start surrounding yourself with people like you, like Haley, like surround yourself, outsource, understand what you're outsourcing, but understand it and then do what you do best and get others to do what they can do. Like I didn't run into Haley's book, Fearless Marketing. Do you know how much time I would have saved if I had that book 2 years ago? And how much more money I would have made as a result? So how many people, when they're thousandaires, are missing opportunities because they're so busy spinning the wheel to get it done? That's what I would say, and not surrounding themselves in places that support them as they're trying to go. Millionaires, everybody want to be their friend. So they don't have a problem getting they pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Bob, what's happening?" You know, and Bob takes the call. I'm lucky. I can make calls to people like that. Thousandaires, they can't take that call. So they're not making that call, and they're too busy to build relationships with those people. They stay small.
Well, and then they're not building those relationships. So they're not building that network and the list of people that they can trust. You know, hey, you know, when you have to dial a friend, I need help with X, Y, or Z odd thing. Well, it's hard to get help with it if you don't know who to call and who to ask for help. But a lot of times we're not.
Definitely true. I wasn't even going to go in that direction today, but I got to tell you, that's a great direction. I mean, that having the people surround you, the network of people who are successful, and missing out on mistakes because you asked somebody who actually knew how to get it done instead of hunting on the internet for finding someone who's just happy to take your money and not actually accomplish the task that you gave them.
So, the judgment, Haley. And Kerry.
And even sometimes you know somebody really well and you think that they're going to do a great job by you and they're going to take your money and they're not going to try to do the job well. You know, so you can even end up with wolves in sheep's clothing surrounding you if you're not super careful. And I mean, to some extent, you're going to have to weed people out. But
yeah. I do find, though, in an actual business network like the one that we're building together, Haley, you get less of that because it's really uncomfortable to show up every week if you're ripping people off. So if you got people coming on an ongoing basis and they're there frequently and people are saying good stories about them, you know, you generally got some good quality people to work with. You know, we see people sometimes join a business network. They're there for 2 or 3 weeks or a couple of months, and they're just there to take what they can get and get out of here. I don't want to keep paying that fee. I come to conquer and grab some clients and run off. Well, oftentimes they're also lacking in accountability in other areas. It's made them uncomfortable that they had to show up, be together, do a good job, and be consistent. And it just, you know, good networking kind of weeds that out. That is absolutely true.
But I want reputation right there.
Yeah, and I want to come back to mindset. Yeah, sorry, Katherine. Yes.
Sorry, Ann, because I remember in 2002 when I opened my real estate company, no clients, I like no money, like nothing, and I decided to go into business. And I remember going to a call, and the person offered to pay me. Like I was never a thousandaire. Like I sat there like I knew my value. I walked away from whatever amount of money. Person said, well, we'll give you, and this is a true story, $150,000. And I put my coat on and thanked them for the opportunity. And I had no other client at the time, eh? Not another, it was going to be my first client. And I just put my coat on and no, because I knew my value. And I knew what I wanted to make because I knew what time it would take. So has somebody figured out who they are and what they do so that they put a value to it and go the distance and have the faith, and because they've put it out there, and surround yourself, well, you're right, and get experts, pay for the expert. So thank you.
Yeah, I was just looking at one of our comments in the comment section here. Shan Kramer says mindset equals neural pathways in the brain, and we can always create new ones. And that is a great word. Let's talk about that for a minute, because I mean, all of us started out, I think, somewhere. I started out as a Thousandaire. For sure. I think in 2010, when I got started in business, I was in a really rough spot. I didn't have really 2 nickels to rub together. I was in debt, and I had been surrounding myself with people who were broke and poor, trying to help them. And as I delved deeper into their world, I became more and more like them. And I didn't really realize it until I was in financial crisis and my life was falling apart financially. I lost my home, and a whole bunch of crazy things happened during that time. And it was at that time that I realized that your mindset, or your mind, how you think, is important. The neural pathways are a thing. You have these ruts in your head of the way thoughts just typically run down, just like water running off a roof of a house. If you were told that money doesn't come easy and money doesn't grow on trees, and money is hard to get and there's a limited supply of it. These were all things that were in my background, my family history, the things that were said to me as a child, things that I grew up believing. And then here I am in those days, I was in my 30s. I was a preacher. I was preaching a prosperity message. But that was what I had learned as a kid. And those
yes, but money doesn't keep you
still
Kerry.
What's that?
Money is the root of all evil now. Money doesn't
exactly.
keep you
And then there was that added on top of it. I got this guilt around the whole idea of making money or even thinking about it.
So and how dare you charge somebody for what you're doing? Because you should be doing that for free, right?
Yeah, it was all for free. And it was even worse. I call it, poverty thinking. I had charity thinking. It was even worse than poverty thinking. I honestly believe that everything should be free that had value. So
is that the mindset of a millionaire?
No, good gravy. In fact, my situation got worse and worse and worse. In the year 2000, I made $80,000 because I wrote a book and it did well. In the year 2010, I did my income taxes. Here's 10 years into that whole thing. I did my income taxes. I made $16,000 that year. And I was raising 3 kids on it. So it was affecting me. And the ruts had gotten deeper and not in a good way. So when I got into that position in my life, I realized I've got to change me. No one's the Calvary's not coming. It's all up to me. So I started to look intently at, how are you thinking, Kerry? What are you spending your time thinking about? And why is this happening to you? Because the only common denominator was me. Like Haley was saying, you blame the website. I didn't even have a website. I had no website, like person to blame. You can blame
people who will go, they'll be on the 4th website iteration and they're like, I haven't gotten my first sale. At which point I am one of those people who will gently say, maybe we need to take a step back and work on the structure of your business and figuring out what you're selling and how you're selling it and all of those things before we structure your website.
Bingo. Lately I've had, over the years, you have people come along, and I now run a business network, and they'll say, well, networking doesn't work. Networking works just fine. Here's the real problem. You suck at selling. Stop it. Get over it. Learn to sell. Because if you can sell and you get a lead through networking or through a website or through anything, you can close the deal. But if you're not making sales, it's time to look inward.
Well, and if you're not talking to enough people, you're not going to have sales.
There's that as well.
And you're never going to have that opportunity to say, hey, maybe we should take a step back here before we build this next website, which will be the 4th or the 5th or the 6th time you've done it, and figure out what your business is before we jump off that deep bridge again.
Exactly.
Yeah, people don't know who they are. They don't know what they're doing sometimes. And that's the one thing that I'd say for me, I was never impressed or intimidated by money. I always understood somewhere in me, even in poverty, that it was a tool. And that if I knew what I wanted, the money would come. Because it's like people talk abundance, it's all out there. Well, you just have to know what you want. That's the enough of what's out there. If you know, and so if I tell you I want a website, but I don't give you everything I am and everything I want, then there's nothing you can build for me. And I think that's the difference in somebody that wants to be like, for me, my friends that are on social assistance and my friends that are own the bank, they're the same, eh? I put them, they're so similar. I feel if I'm having tea with either of them, it's the same conversations and the same thinking, and they're the same people. They're just real people. And that's the thing. We judge sometimes. I could easily walk into a community and say, well, I'm servicing the guy and I'm doing a building that's $50 million. What am I going to do with this company that's looking for 10 clients in sports consulting? Well, you know what? I have a problem now, because that's where the problem, and that's what you teach, Kerry, and you talk about it. But do people live it? When they walk in the room, do they want to not get to know me because they may say, yeah, well, her clients are the bank. What's she going to do with me? Wait a minute. Maybe you want to get to know me, or her, you know, like, or what does she know? She's not the one with $1 billion. Maybe you don't want to judge me. So that's the same for me.
Or maybe people are afraid to talk to me sometimes because I'm the one founder. Yeah. Or
you got 76,000 women. You must be massive. I don't think we can relate.
I think the only thing that's massive is my rear end here. But I kind of sit here and people think that I've got some social media manager who's managing all of my social media, and it's not really me responding. And, and nothing could be further from the truth. And I think that one of the things that business has very much taught me is to keep my feet planted firmly on the earth and keep my head out of my rear end, because, that's not a good place to be. And being very aware and being very humble is super important. It doesn't matter who you think you are, how rich you are, or what kind of education you have, or what kind of pretty, diplomas and plaques you have on the wall. It's how you treat people and how you make them feel that really matters.
It is, absolutely.
Haley, you reminded me of something, because I didn't know what's the one difference I would make, and that would be time. A person with a billionaire mind frame values, they know that the value is time. That's the biggest investment. You don't get that back. So they appreciate it, value it, and it has to fulfill something in them if they're doing it. That's why I live your life by design is about that. It's about, how are you living? What are you doing? I want to meet you, Kerry, because I may want to do something with you. I don't sit thinking about it. I get on a plane. I want to meet Haley. I get on a plane.
And Katherine literally did get on a plane, flew from Montreal to Calgary to meet me, and then flew to Raleigh, North Carolina to meet Haley.
For my birthday party.
Truth here. This is her truth. And she really does this.
And then sat there and helped me cook my birthday dinner and went shopping with me at all these crazy shopping supermarkets here locally, and hit all these crazy things that we did.
And didn't discuss business. There'll be another time for that.
There was no business being discussed. It was, how fast can we make tamales and refried beans and rice? And can you please stir that pot right there?
And if we can imagine Sarah Blakely going out one night and wanting to fit well in her pants and not be see-through and not have panty lines, taking a pair of nylons and cutting the feet out of them, and then having $5,000 and deciding that she created Spanx. everything you know, these banks, which is $1.1 billion business. So she had a passion. She knew what she liked. She knew what she wanted. She didn't know she was creating. These billionaires that are self-made millionaires, they didn't know. They didn't go out with the money. They went out with a vision to do something. They were in the zone.
Yeah,
In the
you know,
zone.
and I think a lot of it has to do with just focus, you know, getting focused in on what you're doing and staying focused on it as you're building something. But I want to talk a little bit more about, and that might be one of the things actually as we're discussing this. If you're a thousandaire and you're trying to get to be a millionaire, you know, what are some quick tips we can give the thousandaires trying to up level? You know, I would say, first of all, surround yourself with millionaires.
Absolutely.
And you know what? When I was struggling financially in the beginning of this, and I really needed to be around people who were ahead of me, I recognized really quickly that the guys that were on Shark Tank were probably not going to make time to spend time with me at that moment. Okay. I wouldn't even be able to get past the gargoyle at the gate that runs their office. All right. However, there were people in my life or close enough to me who owned a couple of houses, took their winters and flew south, you know, had a business or two. And when I asked them to be my mentors, they actually stood up and went, yeah, would love to help a young woman do that. And it was amazing. You know, they were ready and willing to speak into my life. And they weren't billionaires. They were moderate millionaires, kind of low end millionaires, you know, had good assets and maybe a million or two, nothing huge, nothing really, really big in these days numbers, you know, but they were further ahead than I was. And that's all I needed was that edge up just to start changing the way I think and to get around people who actually thought a little bit differently. Made a monster difference in my life. Ladies, what kind of mentors did you have that actually shifted those things for you?
For me, it's been honestly about building my network, building my friends. You know, where I would say I started building the mentors and the friendships, both in my Facebook group, online, and then through my BNI group. Um, you know, it's really kind of funny. I've had mentors in different aspects of my life in the last few years. It's been huge. I mean, I already had like quite a few from my corporate years, from Duke, from, you know, getting my MBA and stuff. But in the entrepreneurial world, it was about connecting deeply with other entrepreneurs. The cool thing for me with the whole network thing has been, it's not just been about, you know, hey, here, help me with my business, although that has happened. But those connections literally have saved my family's life. When I say that, and I'm not like exaggerating, I have an older child who had a traumatic brain injury in 2015 from a fall from a horse, subsequent psychiatric issues, traumatic brain injury issues, and some other health related issues that were definitely exacerbated by the TBI. And it was that network that actually stepped in and is like, hey, here's how you work the system in order to get the healthcare system and the hospital system and the mental health system to do what you need it to do. And here's the questions that you need to ask. And here's how you walk through this process. And here's how you do this. And here's how you do that. You know, and there, but for the grace of God go I, because, you know, as somebody who has had a child who is gone through some really bad stuff mental health wise, and, you know, had points in her life where she was homicidal, and I've had the police in my house, I don't know, probably a dozen times. You know, we were very lucky. You know, we were, you know, Caucasian, we live in a very affluent neighborhood, you know, and all those things. But, you know, it was those networks and those connections that I built with the police, even, where they were able to say, hey, do it this way or ask that way. Or, you know, if you have to call 911, tell them to do this. And it was, you know, my BNI friends and my BNI connections and the network that I built that literally told me how to navigate like this whole system. So it wasn't just like, hey, here's clients. Hey, here, let me send you these referrals. But like, hey, let me refer you to the one person in the entire state that actually does the kinds of placements that you need. Let me introduce you. Let me navigate you in through this system here. Let me do that. And it's just been interesting how it just, has made.
I just love that you're bringing that up, because I was just thinking, like, we've talked before, and I have a daughter who had some of those same challenges, and I never really put that together, that it was my network that impacted the decisions that I made and helped us get through that. But it definitely was. In my case, I was from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and the first network I had involvement with was a business network called the Calgary Business Network, that I, within a year or two, took that over and started to operate it as my own business. So it was like I just owned the network, I wasn't going to someone else's. And then we actually integrated another really big one that kind of ran similarly to a BNI meeting, but there were 17 chapters. And I bought that, and we took that over and started running that. And I was suddenly surrounded by these experts of all kinds. And to be surrounded by experts helped me in every way. I mean, it helped me with those situations, to get through those crises, how to deal with, the health type stuff, but also in business, start making decisions in a more wise way and stop making all of these mistakes. Because we were, when you start with a new business, you make a bunch of mistakes. And those mistakes can take you out if they're costly, or just even missing out on doing things right,
But it was finding the right attorney who told me, and gave me some tips as far as how to structure my estate to make sure that I don't put my daughter at risk. It was meeting another paralegal who had personally been through some of the same exact situations and is like, oh, you need to do this, 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 and this, and it was almost like, picking locks to get my way through the entire system, oh, and if you're trying to get funding, you need to ask this set of questions in this order. And then you need to, do this, list of things, and then ta-da, and I'll be darned if it didn't work. And I'm like, okay, so I'm sitting here, I've got an engineering degree, an MBA from Duke, and I've got a network with 70 some odd thousand members, and I've got, my local community supporting me. And I'm like, and it took me everything I had to work my way through that system. And, while growing my business, while making a living, while doing all those things, being supported by that network around me. And I'm like, and what is somebody who doesn't have all those assets and those resources supposed to do?
Yeah, exactly. Katherine, what are your thoughts on this?
I've been just following, and I'm saying anybody here that's starting out, or anybody that's plateaued because they're bored now. They've made it, they've done it, they're bored. What could I say? I guess on my journey, I connected was always the thing. The thing that made me very successful was I always connected. I knew my value, but I was always willing to help wherever I could for free. But if I were going to charge you for something, you were paying the value of it. And then I would say is integrity. I never budged from my integrity and my focus on where I was going, and learning and growing in whatever I did. When I started real estate, I took 1 year. I took the lease, the commercial lease. I studied every clause and the application on all sides of a negotiation. I studied with finance, lawyers. I took a year every day studying what I was doing while I was delivering to my clients. So I did it simultaneously. Sometimes we don't put it in balance. And that's where we can go wrong. We stop the growing. We are busy with the doing, but it all works together. And I guess, I let go of the things that didn't work. Letting go is just as important as moving forward. I didn't let go of my dreams. I didn't fail. I just said, oh, wait, let go of that. That's not necessary. Do it this way. Letting go to get other people to help you. And my biggest thing, if I had only one thing, for all of you you have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind, and it's the whole mind. And everything that you see, do, feel, it just goes right into the subconscious mind without you knowing it. And that's 24/7, even when you're sleeping. So I feed my mind and constantly weed the garden of negativity that's been imposed on, how do you think you're going to do that? You don't have a university degree. You can't represent. I met a woman from France who was my secretary at the time. I want you to get this story. It's the best I can give anybody. And she looked at me and she said to me, and I'm going to translate, so I'm going to be slow here because I speak both languages. I think the language I heard the story. And she said, I have a university degree. I'm very rich. I own a lot of real estate. And she went on to who she was. You don't have a degree. And she went on to whatever she thought of me, quite honestly. And I listened. And she said, yet you're my boss. And you're the only woman in this company working in commercial real estate. And I'm your secretary. I said, well, I can't believe you just said that to me. I can't believe that in order to put yourself up, you had to put me down. I said, I'm going to let it go because we're social. But you know what? She was right. From her perspective, I didn't how many people judged me? I didn't have the degree. I was a woman in the man's world. And you have to weed that garbage out. You got to look at the person that's working with you that thinks they're better than you, smile, wish them a good day, and keep on moving.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry,
it's a great story, and I think that's absolutely true. I want to talk billionaires for a minute because I know you guys all have some billionaire stories. I'm gonna throw out a billionaire story here. I was just looking at Forbes billionaires, and I was looking at the women self-made billionaires, not anyone who inherited it, but actually built the thing. And I was looking up a couple of them that I thought were really interesting because, of course, we all know about the Oprahs of the world and Rihanna, but there's superstars. There are people who are on television and music, and we look at those and we go, yeah, but that person is a television star. That person is a musician. What about normal people? So the number one female self-made billionaire in the United States is Diane Hendricks, who made her fortune through roofing, and she lives in Wisconsin. I thought that was awesome. And as I started looking her up and looking into who she is and what she's done, like, she just looks like a really down-to-earth, normal person who made it big. And I looked a little bit more and I found Judy Love, who made her billions, 5.2 billion through retail and gas stations, and she's from Oklahoma. Isn't that cool? There's Gail Miller, who owns car dealerships. These are normal things. And then Linda Resnick, she's in agriculture from California. Like, amazing. There's a few in there in aerospace and tech and some things like that. But there's also several in the top 10 that are just normal people who did something extraordinary, with their lives and just kept going and thinking differently and moving ahead and multiplying what they were doing. And I know you ladies both have some billionaire stories too. Let's just give some encouragement to people today. Katherine, I know you have some. Tell us the story of working with billionaires, people who do big dollar volumes, and how they think and things that they do that are different than the average person that you might meet out there, how they think about stuff.
They don't let anything stop them from what they want. When they decide that they have their cat and their cat's not well, so they call their private plane and they bring the cat on the plane and they fly. And on their flight, all of a sudden the cat's getting sick. And what they do is they say, land the plane, land the plane. Now, anybody knows anything about landing a plane? My husband tells the story much better. I can't believe this. It's one of somebody that my husband was on the delivery of the plane with, and we got to know him. Phenomenal human being. And you know what's phenomenal about him? Is that he's just clear on where he's going. Is he generous, kind, all that? I don't know about that. Here's what I like about him. He's real. And he landed that plane, and with all the fire trucks and everything and all the penalties that went with it. But he needed something, and he didn't think about the cost of it. He didn't think about anything more than going to the best and whatever it took to get to the best. Now, that's a billionaire. We don't have, when we need something, do we take the time to go to the best? Do we? And it's not about money. That's the way we think, what we can and can't do. Can't really call that person, can't really do that. No, you can call anybody, no matter where you are in life. So that's what billionaires teach me. And they like real, like they like me. And I'm not, when I started with them, I remember working with them where they wouldn't we're selling a building for $50 million. And what do you think about it? What do they need me to think about it? They own a bank. They're billionaires. But you know what? They value, this is the other thing, they value the expertise around them. So that's the story I would say. I remember I was a little ignorant. You can imagine when I baptized my son in 2000, I had the owner of a bank sitting beside my friend on social assistance. And I want you to know, I saw no difference. My girlfriend did find a difference. And the guy I knew, they were awkward with each other. And it's always about not even money. They didn't get past their own limitations. And religion's the same thing. I had an Orthodox Jewish person next to a born again Catholic. I didn't have a problem with it. And that's the whole thing. Know where your problems are and then work in your world. But if you ask me, how do we act? Because this is the key, because most of the people in our room may not be a billionaire. We may have friends that are billionaires. We're not billionaires. I'm not a billionaire. Know a lot of billionaires. I'm not a billionaire. But what I will tell you is I remember shopping at Ritz-Carlton. And it's all, attitude is a thing. We talk about mind, attitude. I walked into Ritz-Carlton from the gym. And when I walked in, the woman didn't want to serve me. And I couldn't believe it because I'm looking at her like, you don't want to serve me. Like you're working here for minimum wage, right? So, and I was very successful. I could afford anything in that store that they had. And I was like, who is this person? But I was treated that way because of the way I looked. So now my uncle goes to buy a car, who's a multimillionaire. He goes in to buy the car. When he goes to buy the car, he goes in like with a hole in the pant, like, don't take the Irish out of the street. You can't take that out of them, no matter how rich they get. That hole in the sweater, going to buy the car, he's buying it cash. Do I have to tell you how he was treated? Because I think we all know how he was treated. That night he came back. I'll take anybody to serve me but that person. Like, it's like the pretty woman example, but this is real. People are, but we don't have to buy that. My girlfriend, who's a multimillionaire in fashion, goes out to Europe, won't go into the Louis Vuitton store because she's educated enough to know I'm a multimillionaire, but those are for maybe people with 100 million, not somebody with 10 million. Like, you limit yourself no matter where you are, is what I'm trying to say. The multimillionaires have the same issues the poverty person is. It's poverty. They don't, there's a right and a wrong way to do things. No, there's your way to do something. And that's what the billionaires tell me. That's what my few friends, because there's not,
right,
tell me.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Haley, what's been your experience with those that are a little bit ultra wealthy?
Honestly, they're real people. They put on their pants the same way. And what really makes the difference between people is how they treat others around them. And I've gone to school with plenty of people that were ultra wealthy. I've graduated with lots of people that were ultra wealthy or have since become that way. And, at the end of the day, the most wealthy among them are the most real, humble, down to earth people. And, all they want to do is be treated like people, whether it's in romantic relationships or whatever else. They're not there to, serve your every financial whim, but if they can be a resource in the sense of, hey, can I help you with knowledge? Most of them are very willing to be, a support and a resource. It's kind of interesting to me to see how supportive they actually really are and how real, of people around them.
Awesome. You know what? In closing today, I would just like to say one thing. Money just multiplies whatever you are. That's all it does.
Absolutely.
If you're a jerk, then you're going to be a jerk at a higher level. Okay. If you're somebody like if you're a dominating dictating type of person, you might become a dictator in a real way, running a country or something if you add this multiplication of money. Okay. But if you are a giving and kind and generous person and you add that multiplication of money to it, you just give in bigger ways. It's really just multiplies who you are. Whatever the passions are that you do, the artist that doesn't make much money sits at home and paints, but the artist that starts to make a lot of money travels and paints. It just multiplies. It multiplies whatever it is that you are. So it doesn't matter how much money you make. You can start with working on who you are and becoming a better you. And
Yep.
I believe that what we invest in ourselves is of the utmost importance. And for years, I've been investing in me because I'm a winning horse. And if you bet on me, you're going to win. All right. And I decided that I was going to take my own advice and drink my own Kool-Aid and bet on myself. And I would encourage others to do the same. Invest in yourself, put that best foot forward, and keep taking step after step after step in the direction that you want to go. And don't let anything or anyone turn you away from that path if that's where you want to end up. So Thousandaires.
Figure out who you want to be and don't wait tomorrow to be that person.
Start today. Start today.
Be it. Be that
Thousandaires
person.
can become millionaires and millionaires can become billionaires.
They'll help you because they'll be putting you right on track there.
Step by step by step. Yeah. Anyways, that's exciting stuff. We have begun a new journey. Haley and I have launched the When weekly network, and I put the link down there for everybody to see that. Join us at the When Weekly Tuesdays at 3:00, and there's a link there for you. We're bringing people together, lots of women from the Women's Entrepreneur Network and a few smart men. And if you want to join us, come on down. The water's warm. We're going to be getting together again this Tuesday. And some Tuesdays are guest day. This Tuesday is. If you're watching this later, it might not be. But you can still follow the link, and it will take you right into the next guest day. So we're really looking very excitedly toward the future and what we're going to be doing as we bring people together so they can have that sense of networking and community that Haley has been talking about has made such a difference in her life, and that Katherine has had around her and her business career and what we've been developing over the last decade. I'm very excited about that. Are you excited about that, ladies?
Yes.
And you know what? Fall in love with money. Like, it's not a dirty word. Like, I love money. I'm going to tell you that right now. I love people. I love money. I love my life. It's okay.
It's great to love money. Money is just energy.
And it's absolutely. And you know what?
You can do great things with it.
Well, I believe that what you put your heart into and what you are will multiply. And the more that you have the money, it will multiply that. So I love people and I love God. And as a result, money just adds to it, and it's wonderful. So I don't struggle with it or not, it just, it all flows when you do this. So I cannot wait to be sharing, all of us have different perspectives, and we want to share those perspectives with this community that comes together, and it's going to be fabulous. So join us at the next When Weekly. Happy capitalism, everyone.
Happy capitalism.
Bye.